Social anxiety is one of the most relentless, horrible, exhausting things that you can deal with. Now, I could make a bunch of videos about just anxiety in general. This could be one of them, but today I'm specifically going to talk about social anxiety just to kind of keep it nice and tight. I've had social anxiety since I was really, really young, and I've said in previous videos that I grew up a shy kid. I grew up as like the little boy in the cartoons that like hides behind his mom's leg just because an adult is present. A stranger is present that I do not know. There's a difference between that just being shy and social anxiety. Social anxiety is something that I feel like develops in your teen years. I feel like that's when it really started for me, really early teen years. Now, let me halt for a second and let you know that I am not a psychologist. I am not a therapist. I am just a guy that has experienced social anxiety through my brain, and I've seen it I've seen other people deal with it. So I'm just letting you know that I'm not coming from this from any kind of professional viewpoint, just my experience of having this thing for years. Years. It is one of the worst things, the most crippling things that I can't say like you've dealt with because I don't know your brain, but I know for sure it has crippled me most of my entire life. I've always been introverted. I'm still introverted to this day, but I'm definitely better about that and more extroverted. I'm an introverted extrovert. I am more extroverted than I've ever been, but I'm still an introvert. Does that make sense? But I remember even at a really young age being able to have one-on-one conversations with like my hairstylist, or of course like my family. It's always different with like family, but you get a bunch of family together and that's when it starts to get really bad. I feel like social anxiety spawns from a thought, but before that thought there might have been something that was said to you like, hey, you're really sweaty, bro. You're really sweaty. And so you take that thing that they said, and you don't really have much of a defense. You just suddenly feel really subconscious. And I'm using this as an example. They could say anything to you. Like maybe you're like 14, 13 years old, and maybe some kid comes up to you and says, hey, you're ugly. And then so then the thought develops in your mind. Then what happens, what I think creates the social anxiety is that thought. You allow it to spiral. You allow it to snowball. You keep feeding it bad thoughts as to like, oh, this thing, me getting sweaty, me doing whatever it is going to keep happening, and specifically associated with being around people. A week or so later, you have a new party to go to, a birthday party or whatever it is, and that very next time that you have to go to an event, you're dreading it a little bit more because you are deep down scared that that thing that happened or that thing that someone said to you is going to happen again. So within that whole week, up until that new birthday party, that new event, the bad thoughts coming from below, just making it spiral until it's like this bigger, not needed in your life, horrible, disgusting snowball. And that snowball is there for the next thing and the next thing. You create this crippling anxiety out of just the fear of that thing happening again. But here's the catch to that. Most likely, that thing isn't actually going to happen again. And there is so many layers to this that I could describe it better, but that is just a drawing it out, very easy to try to understand version of this. So at some point, years through my life, I have done myself harm by allowing that snowball to stay and to feed off of the bad thoughts. And here's the worst part about it is that thing, that snowball that is like something from way back in the day, does and could actually happen again. That thing, that snowball, is actually a reality, which only feeds it worse. And just when you thought that it shrunk, you thought, okay, that thing hasn't happened for a long time, I think I'm okay, it's like this big now. And then 5 years later, someone's like, hey, you're really sweaty, are you okay? You look pale, or whatever that thing is. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, you're back to square one again, like, oh my gosh, like, it's, like, I'm so self-conscious right now. It's hard to explain to people that have never dealt with that. Those of you that have social anxiety know pretty much exactly what I'm talking about with that. And the problem with this is that snowball starts to take over your life because you're dreading social interaction at all, to the point where you're just abusing your life with that spiraled snowball for years and years and years, until it's pretty much like second nature, muscle memory as they would call, to think like that and to hold that in your mind. But those of you that deal with social anxiety, just understand that there is hope for it. There is hope for that thing that you dread. There's hope. Now, if you are introverted like me, you get on sensory overload. You can't, like, deal with being around people for, a certain amount of time. And you maybe you are watching this video and you do okay around the public, but you just, like, need to decompress after that. That's not even necessarily what I'm talking about, because I think that's normal. That's very normal. I definitely get overstimulated. I, to this day, love being around people, and I don't mind being in a group. I've been to concerts, I've been to just events where there's just a lot of people and a lot going on, a lot of voices at once, and maybe those voices are talking to you, like my wedding, for instance, was, whoo, man, it was a good day, don't get me wrong. My wedding, I will never forget, I never regret that day, but it was a lot because a lot of attention was on me. And I'm not talking about just a quick trip to Walmart, because a trip to Walmart is you're getting from point A to point B, and you're not having to stop and talk into a group of people that are right here hovering over you. It's the forced social interaction. It's the Christmas parties, the Thanksgiving parties. Just letting fear feed that thing until you get yourself into a spiral of more and more awkward, more and more dreading social interaction, and people question, like, hey, why didn't you come to this and this? And you don't really have a good excuse, because it's all based on the fear of social anxiety. Social anxiety feeds social anxiety. It's just an endless cycle. It's an endless spiral. But let me just tell you, there is hope. If you're dealing with it to this day, please be brave enough to leave it in the comments. Because a lot of us don't understand that most likely, a lot of the people that you're having to talk to at these parties probably are also pretty anxious as well. They're just not willing to openly admit it, because we live in a society where, like, talking about, like, what we're feeling in, like, a public kind of situation, I mean, there's a time and place for it. You don't just go and say, I'm anxious at grandma's birthday party. But if someone pulls you to the side and is just like, hey, you look kind of like you're upset or you're anxious, like, are you okay? It'd be like, to be honest, I'm really not. It's that breakthrough of understanding that it's okay to not feel okay that I think is the start of the path to healing. Because what if that person themselves looks at you and is like, yeah, I'm kind of feeling like that too. I just needed some fresh air. Is that kind of weird? And you'll be like, no, it's not weird, because I needed it too. The main point to this video is how I've personally healed myself from it and cope with it to this day. The wrench that I throw into that spirally snowball, that fear attacks it, is training my brain to put that wrench right here where the fear meets the wrench and it can't get to the spirally snowball. And that wrench is to stop caring. Training my mind to stop caring about what people think of me was the first step, I feel like, to making myself better. And there's something in that where, like, my brain knows that I have to make this wrench block this, because I know that it's no way to live. At some point into your adult life, I think you hit a wall that's just like, I cannot let this control my life all the way until I grow old and die of old age, and the last thought I had is that I had social anxiety my whole life, and oh my gosh, I have so many regrets to not go live and talk to people and all of that. That right there, to grow old with that much regret is scarier than the social anxiety itself. That's the biggest way that is helping me to this day, is to train my mind, and this takes practice. This isn't an overnight thing. Every single day, practicing. And how you practice is to force yourself in social interactions. Forcing myself to talk to a friend on the phone, just to, like, word things and learn how to actually talk. But not only that, what's even better is forcing myself to go out and have interaction. Those Christmas parties, make sure that you're at the Christmas parties. Because even though you're not going to like it, you're going to be uncomfortable, but that's kind of the point. Because your discomfort forms more into comfort, because once you're at that party and you survive the whole 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is, you have that sigh of relief after of, wow, I actually survived that whole thing, and none of that stuff that I was fearing happened. And even if it did happen, in the 2 hours, it's okay. Everybody in that room forgot about it within like 5 or 10 minutes. It's not even a thought anymore. Forcing myself to not care about what people think, forcing myself to go to social interactions, and forcing myself to understand that if that thing happens that I've been fearing, who cares? Because life goes on at the end of the day. Your problems that you're developing, that spirally snowball that you're developing in your mind, understand that it does not matter, because no one thought about it again. And if you died tomorrow and they're looking at your grave, they're not even thinking about that thing. Now, don't get me wrong when I say you don't matter. You matter to your family, you matter to God, you matter to the beings and people that matter to you, but regular strangers, they have other things going on in their lives. You're probably barely a thought, and when you are a thought, it's kind of just like I wonder how so-and-so is doing, and then they go about their day, or they do call you, and they're really cool, and they hit you up, and but their first thing that they say on that phone call isn't gonna be, hey, remember when you embarrassed yourself, blah, 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 blah. Because guess what? They probably have their own stuff. They have their own anxiety. Not everybody has social anxiety. Even men that aren't, willing to admit that they have some issues have some sort of issues. That's actually an issue in itself, to me, that they're not willing to admit, and fix their issues, fix their mental health problems. Throw a wrench in the weird spirally snowball thing that I said. If you allow fear to feed it for years, it's just gonna keep growing. And it causes health problems too, because I feel like social anxiety in general can cause high blood pressure and stuff like that. And that's not to cause more anxiety for you and freak you out, but just understand that you have to go out of your way to take the steps to throw whatever it is, that wrench against it somehow, understanding that tomorrow's just a different day. I can work on myself every day, and it's not going to take you sitting at home and too scared to get out. It's going to take you to practice the thing you fear, because discomfort is the only way that leads to comfortability. Very ironically, you can relate it to a skill of something you've always wanted to learn, but you've always been scared to learn it. Maybe it's art. Maybe you're like, oh, my drawing is gonna suck, so I have too much anxiety about drawing and making good art. Well, your first piece ain't gonna be good. Most likely not. But then you keep getting practice. You get the second piece, third piece. You've drawn the fourth piece. You've drawn the fifth piece. Maybe at first it was uncomfortable. Oh man, my hand's starting to hurt, whatever. But then you start to grow that muscle that allows you to be able to draw easier. It's the same thing with anxiety. You have to exercise the anxiety muscle. How are you going to get over your social anxiety if you don't force yourself to be social? Please try to answer that for me. Please try to answer a different way to do it than to make yourself uncomfortable. I don't know how long this video is going to be, and I do apologize for the length, but I want to talk about it today. I hope that this has helped you in some way. If it hasn't, let me know in the comments. If it has, let me know in the comments. Please tell me your story down in the comments. I want to know, because I know for a fact when it comes to social anxiety and having it for years, I am not the only one. I have literally just desperately just been exhausted by social anxiety, where I have just Googled, does anyone else deal with this? And then there's stories upon stories upon stories. You are not alone. This video should be proof of that itself. You're not alone, I promise. I promise. Honestly, I thought this video would be one of those where I get so passionate about how much it has affected my life that I cry. I really thought that I would cry in this video, but I got so fired up about how to help the situation that I didn't have much of a story of how much it has affected me, but I cannot describe to you how crippling it has been most of my life. I love you guys. Stay safe out there. God bless every single one of you. Please leave me your comments, and let's have the discussion. Any of these videos are an open discussion. I just want to sit in front of the camera and talk. So let's let that back and forth dialogue happen. Trav out. Peace out.